Hi Kelly, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Just trying to catch up on everything.
So, the first question I have for you, Dr. Mariman, is Cryptosporidium parvum and Isospora belli are highly prevalent in the intestinal tract of HIV positive patients worldwide. These parasites were one exclusively zoonotic up until the first outbreak in the 1950s. Why do you think that there is high prevalence of these parasites among HIV positive patients?
Okay, so Cryptosporidium and Isospora, both of them are considered opportunistic infections, which means they are present in the environment. It's just that people who are immunocompetent will have the capacity to fight them, and you will not see the manifestation of symptoms. When you mention HIV, HIV infected population are immunocompromised, right? Which means they don't have the defense mechanism that immunocompetent people have to fight off these infections. So what you're going to see is you're going to see people who are immunocompromised. That's the HIV infected population, or people who are on, who just had recent transplants or who are on immunosuppressive therapies. What happens in them is their immune system is not functioning very effectively. And even small things can become huge problems. And that's why these infections, which would have otherwise not caused any symptoms in people, now become opportunistic infections, and people manifest the symptoms, and then you will see diarrhea, or sometimes you'll see cramps and nausea and vomiting. This is one of the most common cause for chronic diarrheal conditions in HIV-infected people. And also you mentioned that they were not seen before. Why we're seeing them now? If you notice, HIV was only commonly detected in the 80s in the United States, and then in late 80s in other parts of the world. So what happens is, first of all, we only started to diagnose people with HIV late. And then it's only after that you're beginning to see opportunistic infections. So you're getting to see something which people are picking up through contaminated water or food. So these infections would have been present in the past as well. It's just that we didn't diagnose them.
Okay.
Now what's happening is we're diagnosing them.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mariban. The second question I have for you is, despite geographical and temporal differences, why do you think these parasites are able to reproduce and survive?
What does that mean?
So, different people around the world have HIV and they all have different strains of HIV. But despite the different strains, despite their different geographical locations, these parasites are very common among HIV patients worldwide. Why do you think the parasite is able to survive, despite these differences?
I don't think the problem is with HIV or different HIV strains. It's what this HIV does to your body, right? It's bringing down your defense mechanism in the body. It's causing your immune system to weaken, which means the person becomes immune compromised. So it doesn't matter what the cause is for the immune, how a person becomes immunocompromised or immunosuppressed. It could be HIV, or it could be a transplant surgery, or it could be dialysis. It could be a lot of different reasons. What's important is that the person has become immunocompromised. And as soon as a person becomes immunocompromised, this person is now susceptible to a lot of infections that one would have otherwise not gotten. And that's what you're seeing. In different parts of the world, regardless of what the reason is, when a person becomes immunocompromised, you're going to see these opportunistic infections. And these organisms are present all over the world. The only difference being whether you're able to detect them or not. In any part of the world, if somebody is HIV infected, one of the most common causes of mortality in HIV infected population is diarrheal diseases. And one of the most common infections in these diarrheal diseases is Cryptosporidium or Isospora.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Marivan. And you mentioned that chronic diarrhea is a common symptom associated with these parasite infections. How might this chronic condition affect HIV positive patients in southern rural India communities?
Again, one of the most common reasons that people in India die when they become symptomatic, HIV and symptomatic, is diarrheal diseases. Uncontrollable diarrhea leading to dehydration and death.
Okay.
So it's very common in all parts of the developing world. And Cryptosporidium diarrhea is very common and one of the main causes for morbidity and mortality in HIV infected populations, especially so in India.
And what are some possible solutions that you might suggest to individuals living in the rural communities in order to screen for these infections?
Well, I mean, you have seen what the world looks like in these rural communities. So, first of all, when you talk about screening, there are two different things you have to think about. Is it screening for everybody or is it screening only for HIV infected people? And if it is screening for HIV infected people, again, how are you going to go about doing it? What is your basis for screening for these infections? Usually how it is done is a person becomes symptomatic, they present to the hospital in dehydrated state or with chronic diarrhea, and then during evaluation, the healthcare provider will deduce, okay, this person is HIV infected, not on antiretrovirals, has a low CD4 count, and seems to have irretractable diarrhea. Probably they have a Cryptosporidium infection. That's how it goes. It's not like you go and screen for these infections. The one thing which you can do is try to prevent these infections. Since it is orophycal contamination, so you try to prevent people from eating contaminated food or drinking contaminated water, and making sure that people wash their hands very effectively. So you can just try and prevent them, but screening for this in a community level is not a good idea. It's not going to get anywhere.
Okay.
And also one other thing, when you talk about screening, there are no very specific diagnostics for these things, and even if there are, probably there is an ELISA test that you can use for crypto, but they are expensive. So many situations, you may not even have the necessary diagnostic tools to diagnose what exact infection a person has. So most times what happens is people are treated symptomatically, and then if they are HIV infected, the main thing that people will try to do, or the providers will try to do, is make sure that they start antiretrovirals and improve their immune status. So it's symptomatic and treat the HIV. That's how you try to get control over these parasites.
And if they have advanced, if it's now AIDS, do you think that they would be experiencing the same symptoms?
You're breaking up. Can you say that again, Kelly?
If the HIV patients, positive patients now go into having, AIDS, advanced AIDS, do you think the symptoms would be worse or would they be the same?
when you say an HIV infected patient when they have AIDS, that's what constitutes AIDS. AIDS means when a person starts having all these opportunistic infections. So they might have pneumocystis carrying pneumonia, or they may come with herpes zoster, multi-dermatomal herpes zoster, or they will present with chronic diarrhea, or they might present with CMV retinitis or cytomegalovirus infection and meningitis. Any of these opportunistic infections, when they are manifested in an HIV infected individual, then that person is said to have advanced to AIDS. AIDS is essentially this combination of all these different opportunistic infections and with a very low CD4 count in an HIV infected person.
Okay, Dr. Marivan. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. I hope that was helpful. If you have any other questions, shoot me an email.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay. No problem.